Hey, before I tell you what happened in that valley, I need you to understand something about fear. Not the movie jump scare kind. Not the kind you feel when you almost miss a deadline. I mean the real thing. The one that sits so deep in your stomach it starts rewriting your memories. You ever heard a silence that felt like a physical weight? Like someone pressed pause on the universe, and you're the only one who noticed? That's where this story lives. I'm Captain Mira Voss, and I walked into a rescue mission that wasn't a rescue at all. It was a slaughterhouse wearing a smile. And the worst part? The survivors I was sent to save? They were the bait. Now sit tight, because this isn't a story about war. It's about what war does to the people who survive the parts that were never meant to be survived. The helicopter's rotor wash kicked up a cloud of gray dust that tasted like burnt plastic and old regret. I've been in enough hot LZs to know that taste. It sticks to your teeth. 30 seconds, Captain. The pilot's voice crackled through my headset, calm as a weather report. I looked across the cabin at my team. For faces I trusted with my life, more times than I could count. Sergeant First Class Delgado was already on his feet, one hand braced against the ceiling, his other hand checking the chamber of his M4 for the third time. Nervous habit. The man could field strip a rifle blindfolded, but he still checked. Twitchy, but in a useful way. "You look like crap, Voss," he said, grinning. "That's Captain Crap to you, Delgado." Specialist Kim didn't look up from her drone controller. She was running pre-flight diagnostics on the little quadcopter strapped to her chest rig, her thumbs moving with the kind of precision you only get from someone who'd rather be flying a machine than talking to people. She'd spoken maybe 4 words since we lifted off. That was normal. Kim talked through her tech. Private First Class O'Brien was the opposite. He was leaning against the jump seat, eyes closed, lips moving silently, praying, or maybe reciting the lyrics to some old punk song. With O'Brien, it was hard to tell. He was 22, looked 17, and had the kind of reckless optimism that either got you killed or made you a hero. There was no in-between with guys like him. And then there was Doc Hale, Staff Sergeant Emmanuel Hale, our medic. He was older than the rest of us by a decade, a Mustang who'd enlisted after his first marriage fell apart, and found out he was better at patching up soldiers than he ever was at being a husband. He was checking his aid bag, but his eyes kept drifting to the window. "Talk to me, Doc," I said. "This valley," he replied, not looking away from the gray-brown smear of mountains below. "Doesn't look right. Doesn't look like anything," O'Brien muttered, opening one eye. "It's a ditch with trees." "That's the problem," Doc said. "Too quiet. No smoke, no movement. If there's a village down there, where are the people?" Intel had come in 6 hours ago. A humanitarian convoy had been ambushed on the main road through the Casker Valley. 12 aid workers, 3 local drivers. The distress signal was automated, sent from a satellite phone that pinged for exactly 4 seconds before going dark. Command said there were survivors. They said the enemy had pulled back. They said it was a simple extract. Fly in, grab the wounded, get out. I'd learned to hate the word simple. 10 seconds, the pilot said. I stood up, my knees absorbing the shudder of the Black Hawk. "Listen up. We go in, we find the convoy, we pull anyone still breathing, and we're back in the air in 20 minutes. No heroics. No stopping to count bodies. We are not here to fight. We are here to leave." Questions? Kim looked up. "Drones up. I'll have eyes on the LZ before we touch down." Delgado racked his bolt. "If someone shoots at us, I'm shooting back." "That's not a question. That's a promise." O'Brien opened his other eye. "Can I call my mom when we're done? She worries. You can call the president for all I care. Just keep your head down." The helicopter dropped. That stomach-floating feeling, the sudden lurch of gravity letting go for half a second. Then the skids hit dirt, and we were moving. The LZ was a clearing maybe 50 meters from the road. The convoy was supposed to be east of the river bend, but as we fanned out into the tree-line, I could already see that nothing was where it was supposed to be. The road was empty. No burned-out trucks. No bodies. No blood. "Captain," Kim said, her voice tight. "I'm not getting any heat signatures within 2 clicks. No survivors. No hostiles. Nothing." "That's not possible," Delgado said. "The beacon came from here." I raised my fist. Everyone stopped. The forest went quiet. Not the normal quiet of birds and wind, but the manufactured silence of something that had been scared into hiding. I'd heard that quiet before. In Fallujah, in the Karingal. It was the sound of an ambush holding its breath. "We're leaving," I said. "Now." That's when the first explosion went off. Not near us. Behind us. At the LZ. The Blackhawk's rotor was still spinning down when the ground underneath it turned into a geyser of mud and fire. I saw the helicopter lift, tilt, and then collapse on its side like a dying animal. The pilot's voice screamed over the radio for half a second before cutting out. "Contact front," Delgado shouted, dropping to one knee. But there was no incoming fire. No muzzle flashes. No shouts. Just the burning helicopter and the terrible, perfect silence. "Kim, what do you see?" I hissed into my comms. She was already working her drone controller, fingers flying. "Nothing, Captain. There's nothing out there. No movement. No heat, no weight." "Wait, what?" "The mine. The one that hit the helo. It wasn't pressure triggered. It was command detonated. Someone watched us land. Someone waited until we were on the ground, then blew it. That changed everything. A command detonated mine meant observers. Observers meant an intel picture. An intel picture meant they knew we were coming." "We walked into a trap," O'Brien whispered. "No," I said, my mind racing. "We walked into the first course. The trap is still being set." Doc Hale was already moving toward the burning wreck, his aid bag bouncing against his hip. "Pilot might still be—" "Doc, stop." My voice came out harder than I intended. "If the pilot is alive, they want us to go to him. That's the trap. They blow the helo, we rush to help, and then they hit us from the tree line." Delgado scanned the ridge above us. "So what's the play?" I looked at the burning helicopter, at the tree line, at the empty road, and I realized something that made my blood run cold. The ambush wasn't set up wrong. It was set up perfectly for a different team. A team that would panic. A team that would fragment. A team that would forget the first rule of surviving a kill box. "Don't do what they expect." "We're not going to the helicopter," I said. "We're going into the forest. Due west. Away from everything." "That's away from the objective," Delgado said. "The objective is a lie. There are never any survivors. The distress signal was the bait. They want us to land, get disoriented, and then pick us off one by one when we try to rescue a pilot who's already dead." Kim looked up from her controller, her face pale. "Captain, if you're wrong, then I'll apologize to the pilot in hell." "Move." We moved, fast and low, staying inside the tree line, using the smoke from the burning helicopter as cover. I took point Delgado on my 6, Kim in the middle with her drone, Doc and O'Brien bringing up the rear. The forest was thick, pines, and some kind of broadleaf tree I couldn't name, the ground soft with decades of dead needles. 200 meters in, we found the first body. It wasn't from the convoy. It was a fighter, maybe 25 years old, dressed in civilian clothes with a cheap chest rig over a stained t-shirt. He'd been dead for hours. The wound was small, precise, a single bullet through the base of the skull. Execution style. "They're killing their own," Doc said, kneeling beside the body. "This isn't a hasty ambush. This is a cleanup. Or a message," I said. O'Brien was staring at the body, his face unreadable. "Who would execute their own guys before a fight?" "Someone who doesn't want witnesses," Delgado replied. Kim's drone controller beeped. She glanced at the screen, and her expression went from focused to terrified in less than a second. "Captain, I've got movement. North Ridge. Multiple signatures. They're not advancing. They're setting up a perimeter." A perimeter. That meant they weren't trying to kill us yet. They were trying to contain us. "They're hurting us," I said, the realization hitting like a punch to the chest. The helo was to keep us from leaving. The minefield is to push us west. And whatever's waiting in the west is what they actually want us to find. Or what they want to find us, Doc said quietly. We kept moving. The forest got denser, the light filtering down in thin yellow shaft that made everything look like an old photograph. I could feel the team tightening around me, not panicking but compressing. When soldiers get scared, they get close. It's instinct. Wolves do it. Dogs do it. Humans with rifles do it too. I needed to break the tension before it broke us. "O'Brien," I said, not looking back. "What's your mom's name?" "Maureen," he said, surprised. "Maureen. That's a good name. Does she worry about you?" "She cries every time I call." "Then you'd better live through this so you can keep making her cry." Delgado snorted. "Romantic Captain. I'm a giver." For a moment, just a moment, someone almost laughed. That was the goal. Fear is a fire. You can't put it out, but you can starve of oxygen. Humor is a pretty good firebreak. We crossed a small stream, the water cold and clear, and that's when we found the road. Not the main road, a dirt track, barely wide enough for a vehicle, cutting through the forest like a scar. And on that road, arranged in a perfect line, were 7 backpacks. 8 worker backpacks. Blue canvas, the UN logo stenciled on the side in faded white paint. "Don't touch them," I said, even though no one was moving. Kim zoomed her drone in. "They're rigged. I see wire. Pressure plates under the 2 in the middle. The others? Clean. Just bags." Doc shook his head. "Why rig only 2? Why not all of them?" "Because they want us to think," I said. "They want us to waste time figuring out the pattern. Time we don't have." But I was wrong. That wasn't why they rigged only 2. I figured that out about 3 seconds later when the ground underneath our feet started to hum. It was a low vibration, barely perceptible, like a cell phone on a wooden table. But it was getting louder. Faster. "Everyone down," I shouted. We hit the dirt just as the first round of mortar fire came in. Not aimed at us, aimed at the tree line behind us. The explosions were methodical, spaced exactly 10 meters apart, walking a line of fire from east to west. They weren't trying to kill us. They were trying to flush us. And they were herding us straight toward the road. "Go, go, go." I was on my feet, shoving O'Brien ahead of me, grabbing Kim by the back of her plate carrier. We ran across the road, stepping over the backpacks, and dove into the forest on the other side just as a mortar round turned the dirt track into a crater. I landed hard, my helmet cracking against a rock, stars bursting in my vision. When I looked up, Delgado was beside me, pulling me to my feet. "You good?" "Peachy." Kim was checking her drone. The controller screen was cracked, but still lit. "Drone still up." "Barely." "How about eyes on the ridge?" "There are at least 20 of them, maybe more. They're not moving." "They don't need to," I said. "They've already pushed us where they want us." Doc was kneeling beside O'Brien, who was clutching his left arm. Blood seeped between his fingers. "Shrapnel," Doc said. "Small piece. Through and through. He'll live." O'Brien's face was white, but he was grinning. "Told you. Mom's gonna cry. She's gonna kill you herself if you don't shut up," Delgado said. I pulled out my map. The paper was damp, the ink smearing, but I could still make out the contours. We were deep in the Casker Valley now, maybe 2 clicks from the original ambush site. According to the map, there was a village ahead. Small, maybe a dozen buildings. "That's where they want us," I said, tapping the village. "But I don't know why. There's nothing there. No strategic value. No resources." "Maybe it's not about the village," Kim said quietly. "Maybe it's about what's under it." I looked at her. "What do you mean?" She turned her drone controller around. The screen showed a thermal image of the valley floor. The village was a cluster of warm spots, buildings, maybe livestock. But underneath the village, about 15 meters down, there was something else. A large, rectangular void, cooler than the surrounding earth. "Man-made. That's a bunker," Delgado said. "Or a tomb," Doc replied. I stared at the screen, and for the first time since the helicopter went down, I felt something other than tactical calculation. I felt dread. Real, honest-to-God dread. Because I finally understood what this was. The distress signal. The ambush. The helicopter. The herding. The backpacks. The mortar fire. It wasn't a trap designed to kill us. It was a trap designed to make us open that bunker. And whatever was inside, the people who set this up were so terrified of it that they were willing to sacrifice their own fighters just to keep it sealed. "Captain." O'Brien's voice was small. "What's in the hole?" I folded the map. "I don't know, but I have a feeling we're about to find out." The mortar fire stopped. The forest went quiet again. And somewhere in the distance, I heard a sound that made every hair on my body stand up. It was a child crying. The crying was coming from the village. I knew it was a trap. Every tactical instinct I had was screaming bait, bait, bait. But knowing something is a trap and ignoring it are 2 different things. The sound was too real, the raw, wet hiccup of a kid who'd been scared for so long they'd forgotten how to stop. "That's a recording," Kim said, but her voice wavered. "Doesn't matter," I replied. "If we ignore it and there's actually a kid in there, I'm not living with that. And if it's a recording, then whoever set this up is betting we'll do the stupid human thing." "So we're doing the stupid human thing," Delgado said. It wasn't a question. "We're doing the smart human thing. We check it out, but we do it my way." I pulled Kim aside. "How much battery on the drone?" 20 minutes. Maybe less. "Enough. I want you to fly a pattern over the village. Low and slow. I don't care about thermals. I want audio. Map every sound source. If there's more than one kid crying, if there's movement patterns, if there's anything that doesn't match a single scared child, I want to know. She nodded and started tapping her controller. The rest of us moved to the edge of the tree line. The village was maybe 200 meters away, a cluster of low stone buildings with flat roofs, the kind of place that had been standing for centuries and would probably be standing for centuries more. No lights, no smoke, but the crying was louder now, echoing off the hills. I don't like this, Doc said, adjusting his aid bag. Not the crying, the quiet around it. If there's a kid that upset, where are the adults? Where are the dogs? Where's anything? Maybe the adults are dead, O'Brien said. Then, where are the bodies? Good question. Doc was right. A village this size, even if it was abandoned, should have signs of life or death. Scavenged belongings, spilled food, blood. But the buildings looked untouched, almost preserved. Kim's drone buzzed overhead, a faint mosquito whine. She stared at her controller, her brow furrowed. Captain, I'm picking up 3 distinct sound sources. The crying is one, but there's also a rhythmic tapping, like someone hitting metal, and a low-frequency hum. Subsonic. I can't triangulate the source. The bunker? Maybe. The hum is coming from underground. The tapping, too. Delgado crouched beside her. Tapping like someone's signaling? Tapping like someone's trapped, she said. I made a decision. We go in. Single file. Delgado, you're on point. O'Brien, you're rear guard. Doc, stay in the middle with Kim. No one goes into any building without my order. We find the source of the crying, we assess, and we get out. Clear. Nods all around. The village smelled like dust and something else. Something sweet. Rotting fruit, maybe, or flowers left too long in water. The buildings cast long shadows in the fading afternoon light, and the crying seemed to come from everywhere at once. We moved past the first few structures. Empty, dusty, furniture pushed against walls like someone had left in a hurry, but expected to come back. A pot on a cold stove. A child's shoe in the middle of the floor. Captain, O'Brien whispered. This place is wrong. He was right. It wasn't abandoned. It was waiting. The crying led us to the center of the village, where a stone well sat under a bare tree. And next to the well, huddled against the low wall, was a girl. Maybe 8 years old. Dark hair, dark skin, wearing a dress that had once been yellow but was now mostly brown. She was crying into her hands, her shoulders shaking. No one else was in sight. Kim, I said quietly. Thermals. Scanning. I've got the girl. I've got us. I've got. Captain, I've got heat signatures in the buildings around us. A lot of them. They're not moving. Not moving how? Not moving at all. They're just there. Sitting. Standing. Lying down. But their body temps are normal. They're alive. Ambush. Had to be. Fighters hiding in the buildings, waiting for us to expose ourselves. Delgado, O'Brien, watch the windows. Doc with me. We approached the girl slowly, hands visible, rifles angled down. I didn't want to scare her more than she already was. When we were 10 feet away, she looked up. Her eyes were wrong. Not the color. Not the shape. It was the expression. There was no fear in those eyes. No relief at seeing soldiers. No hope. Just a flat, empty stare that didn't match the sobbing sounds still coming from her mouth. She was crying, but she wasn't sad. That's not a child, Doc breathed. The girl smiled. And then she stopped crying. The buildings around us erupted. Not with gunfire. With doors slamming open. With the sound of dozens of people, men, women, old, young, walking out of their homes in perfect, synchronized lockstep. They didn't run. They didn't shout. They just walked toward us, their faces blank, their arms at their sides. Contact, Delgado shouted, raising his rifle. Hold fire, I yelled. They're civilians. Captain, they're not blinking, O'Brien said, his voice cracking. None of them are blinking. He was right. 30 people, maybe more, shuffling toward us in the twilight, and not a single one of them blinked. Their eyes were open wide, pupils dilated, staring at something we couldn't see. The girl by the well stood up. She walked past me, past Doc, and joined the crowd. And, as she did, she started humming. A low, tuneless sound that blended with the others as they began to hum too. Kim grabbed my arm. Captain, the drone. I'm picking up that subsonic hum again. It's coming from the well. It's getting louder. They're not attacking us, Delgado said, his voice tight. What are they doing? They're hurting us again, I realized. Look at their formation. They're not surrounding us. They're leaving one path open. The path led to the largest building in the village, a long, low structure with a steel door set into the stone. The bunker entrance. They want us to go inside, Doc said. No, it'll be, they want us to open it. There's a difference. The crowd kept walking. Slow, relentless. The humming grew louder, resonating in my chest, making my teeth ache. I'd seen a lot of things in combat. I'd seen men blown apart. I'd seen children used as shields. But I'd never seen anything like this. 30 people, robbed of their will, moving like a single organism toward a goal they didn't understand. We can't shoot them, O'Brien said. He was shaking. We can't. They're not bad people. They're just possessed, Kim finished. I didn't believe in possession, but I believed in weapons I didn't understand. Chemical weapons, sonic weapons, psychotropic agents. There were a dozen ways to turn a crowd into puppets, and the people who'd set this trap had used one of them. The well, I said. Kim, what's generating the hum? I can't tell. It's coming from deep underground. The bunker is below the well. The whole village is built on top of it. Delgado was watching the crowd, his finger off the trigger, but his hand still on the grip. Captain, they're 10 meters away. If they get much closer, we're going to have to either fire or run. We're not firing on civilians. Kim, can you jam the frequency? Maybe, if I can isolate it. Give me 2 minutes. You have one. The crowd kept coming. 8 meters. 5. The humming was so loud now, I could feel it in my sinuses, a pressure building behind my eyes. The girl from the well was at the front, her blank eyes locked on mine. She reached out her hand. I grabbed it. Her skin was warm, human, but her grip was strong, stronger than it should have been. She pulled me toward the bunker door, and I let her, because I finally understood. The trap wasn't the crowd. The trap wasn't a bunker. The trap was me, my empathy, my refusal to hurt civilians. I need to save people. The enemy had studied us. They knew how we operated. They knew we would hesitate, and they used that hesitation to turn us into the very thing that would open the door. Kim, now. She slammed her hand on the drone controller. The drone dropped out of the sky, landing hard on the stone courtyard. For a second, nothing happened. Then, the humming stopped. The crowd froze. Every single one of them, mid-step, mid-breath, like someone had hit pause. The girl's hand went limp in mine. She blinked. Once. Twice. Then, she looked at me with real eyes, frightened, confused, human eyes, and started crying again. Not the fake, hollow crying from before. Real tears. What's happening? She whispered. Where's my mom? The others were waking up too. Confusion rippled through the crowd. A man fell to his knees, clutching his head. A woman started screaming. A teenager vomited onto the ground. Doc, get to them. Check for injuries. Delgado, O'Brien, secure the perimeter. Kim, can you bring the drone back online? Battery's dead. I killed it to stop the transmission. Good call. The bunker door groaned. We all turned. The steel door, the one the crowd had been pushing us toward, was opening on its own. Not fast, slowly, inch by inch, like something on the other side was testing the weight. Cold air poured out of the gap, carrying a smell I couldn't place. Not rot, not chemicals. Something older. Something that belonged underground. Captain, Delgado said, his voice barely a whisper. We need to leave. Now. He was right. We had civilians to protect. We had no transport. We had no reinforcements. Every tactical variable screamed exfiltrate. But the bunker door kept opening. And from the darkness inside, I heard a sound that made me forget how to breathe. Footsteps. Heavy. Rhythmic. Coming up from below. And then a voice. A human voice. Speaking English with an accent I couldn't place. Took you long enough. We've been waiting. The door swung fully open. And, standing in the threshold, lit by the dying light, was a man in a tattered uniform I didn't recognize. He was thin, too thin, like he hadn't eaten in weeks. His face was gaunt, his eyes sunken. But he was smiling. Captain Mira Voss, he said. I know your name. I know your team. I know your protocols, your weaknesses, your hopes. I know everything about you. He stepped forward, and the crowd of villagers scrambled away from him like he was on fire. And I know, he continued, that you have exactly 18 minutes before the secondary charges detonate. The ones under the village. The ones that will turn this entire valley into a crater. He held up a small remote detonator. So here's the deal. You can run. Try to save yourselves. Or you can come down into the bunker with me. And I'll tell you who really sent you here. Because it wasn't your command. It wasn't intelligence. It was me. I made the call. I faked the distress signal. I lured you here. He tilted his head, like a bird studying a worm. The question is, are you curious enough to follow me? Or are you smart enough to die? I looked at my team, at the terrified villagers, at the open bunker door, and for the first time in my career, I didn't know what to do. The man in the tattered uniform waited. He didn't tap his foot, didn't check his watch. He just stood there, the detonator held loosely in his right hand, smiling like we were old friends catching up over coffee. 18 minutes. That's what he'd said. Kim, I murmured, not taking my eyes off him. Can you verify the explosives? She was already working, pulling a secondary device from her vest, a small spectrum analyzer. She swept it toward the ground, toward the buildings, toward the well. Her face went gray. He's not lying, Captain. I'm reading daisy-chain charges on a single frequency. Enough to level a city block. If he hits that button, we're all going to meet gravity very personally. Can you jam it? Not with what I have. The frequency is encrypted. Rolling codes. Military grade. Our military? She hesitated. Yes. That hit harder than I expected. Someone in our own chain of command had supplied this man with explosives. Someone had given him access to our encryption. Someone had told him my name. You see, the man said, as if reading my thoughts. You're not fighting an enemy, Captain. You're fighting a mirror. Delgado stepped forward, his rifle half raised. Who are you? The man's smile widened. My name is Elias Kane. And until 3 years ago, I was a major in the United States Army Psychological Operations Command. I wrote the manual on how to manipulate foreign fighters. I designed the programs that turned enemies into assets. I was very, very good at my job. He took another step toward us. The villagers cowered behind the well, the girl still crying into her mother's shoulder. Her real mother, who had woken from the trance and was now holding her like she'd never let go. And then I was captured, Kane continued. Not by terrorists, not by insurgents, by my own government. Because I knew something I wasn't supposed to know. Something about a program called Echo Harvest. Sound familiar, Captain? It didn't. But the way he said it, like a curse, like a wound, made my skin crawl. I've been in that bunker for 2 years, he said. Alone. With nothing but the thing they put down there. The thing they've been studying. The thing they accidentally woke up. What thing? O'Brien asked. His voice was small but steady. Kane looked at him, and for the first time, the smile faded. Hope, he said. They found a way to weaponize hope. And it almost worked. But hope, it turns out, is hungry. It needs to feed. And when there's no hope left to give, it starts taking other things. Memories. Will. Identity. He gestured at the villagers. You saw what happened to them. That was the bunker leaking. Just a little. Just enough to turn them into sleepwalkers. If that door had been opened all the way, if the thing inside had gotten out, he shook his head. There's a reason I lured you here. A reason I needed a team like yours. To open the door? Kim asked. To close it. He held up the detonator. This doesn't blow the village. It blows the bunker. Seals it forever. Kills the thing inside. But I can't do it from out here. The signal won't penetrate the stone. Someone has to go down there and trigger it manually. Silence. You want one of us to go into a bunker with a monster, Doc said slowly, and blow ourselves up. I want one of you to save 300 villagers, your own team, and possibly the entire region from slow psychic collapse. The explosion is contained. It won't reach the surface. But whoever goes down there won't come back. He tossed the detonator onto the ground between us. It landed in the dust with a soft thud. I've been down there for 2 years, Kane said. I know the layout. I know the thing's patterns. I can get to the trigger in 7 minutes. But I need someone to hold the door open. Someone to keep the thing distracted while I run. The door requires 2 people to operate. One inside, one out. That's why I couldn't do it alone. That's why I needed you. Delgado shook his head. This is insane. You expect us to trust you? You blew up our helicopter. You herded us through a minefield. You used children as bait. Yes, Kane said simply. Because I knew that was the only way to get a team like yours. Soldiers who care. Soldiers who hesitate. Soldiers who would rather die than shoot a crying child. Do you know how rare that is? Do you know how valuable? He looked at me. You're not here because you're the best, Captain. You're here because you're the most human. I picked up the detonator. It was warm from his hand. 7 minutes, I said. 7 minutes from the time the door closes behind me. I turned to my team. Delgado's jaw was set, his eyes hard. Kim was trembling, her hand still on her dead drone. O'Brien looked like he was trying very hard not to cry. Doc was already checking his A-bag, as if he could patch up whatever was about to happen. Nobody volunteers for this, I said. I'm ordering it. Delgado, you're in charge of the villagers. Get them to high ground. East Ridge. Away from the blast radius. Captain, that's an order, Sergeant. Kim stepped forward. I can hold the door. I'm the smallest. I'll fit in the mechanism space. No, I said. You're going with Delgado. You're the only one who can navigate without tech. If the blast knocks out comms, you're their map. O'Brien opened his mouth. I cut him off. Don't. Just don't. Doc put a hand on my shoulder. I've known you for 6 years, Mira. You're not going down there alone. I'm not going down there at all. I looked at Kane. You said you know the layout. You said you can get to the trigger in 7 minutes. So here's the new deal. I hold the door. You go in and trigger the blast. You're the one who set this up. You're the one who owes these people. Kane's smile returned, but it was different now. Sad. You don't trust me to come back out. I don't trust anyone who talks about hope like it's a disease. He nodded slowly. Fair enough. But I need you to understand something. The thing in that bunker, it's not a monster. It's not a weapon. It's a fragment. A piece of something much bigger. And if you close this door, if you seal it away, you're not ending the program. You're just delaying it. Someone else will open another bunker. Somewhere else. And next time, they might not send someone like you. Then, I'll deal with that when it happens. Kane looked at me for a long moment. Then, he walked to the bunker door, stepped inside, and disappeared into the darkness. I followed him to the threshold. The door mechanism was ancient, iron gears and counterweights, the kind of thing built to last 1,000 years. There was a hand crank on the outside, connected to a chain that ran into the wall. Turn it one way, the door opened. Turn it the other, it closed. I grabbed the crank and pulled. The door began to swing shut. Slowly, heavily. The gap narrowed. I could see Kane's shadow moving deeper into the bunker, his footsteps echoing on stone. Captain, Delgado's voice came over the comms. We're moving the villagers. 7 minutes. Don't be late. I won't. The door was almost closed now. 6 inches. 4. 2. And then I heard it. The hum. Not from the villagers this time. From the bunker. From deep, deep below. It was beautiful. That was the worst part. It was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard, like a choir made of memory and longing. It promised things. Peace. Rest. An end to fear. I wanted to let go of the crank. I wanted to walk into that bunker and let the sound carry me away. Instead, I pulled harder. The door closed with a sound like a tomb sealing. The hum cut off instantly. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear my own heartbeat. 1 minute down. 6 to go. I leaned against the stone wall, breathing hard. The crank was hot in my hands. My ears were ringing. Captain. O'Brien's voice. You okay? Peachy. 2 minutes. The ground shuddered. Not an explosion. Something else. Something underneath. The bunker was shaking. 3 minutes. The door started to bulge. Not open, bulge, like something on the other side was pushing against it from the inside. The iron groaned. Stones cracked. Kane, I whispered. Whatever you're doing, do it faster. For minutes. The detonator was still in my pocket. I could feel it pressing against my hip. If Kane failed, if the thing got out, I had one option left. Blow the bunker from the outside. It wouldn't be as clean. The villagers might not make it to high ground in time, but it would stop whatever was pushing against that door. 5 minutes. The bulging stopped. The shaking stopped. The silence returned. And then I heard footsteps. Running. Coming up from below. Kane burst out of side tunnel. Not the main door, a smaller maintenance hatch I hadn't noticed. His uniform was torn. His face was bleeding from a cut above his eye. But he was grinning. Trigger set, he shouted. Get clear. I didn't wait. I grabbed him by the collar and ran. We cleared the village just as the explosion went off. Not a fireball, a suck. A sudden inward rush of air that pulled dust and leaves and loose stones toward the bunker, toward the ground, toward the thing that was now buried forever. Then a deep, rolling thump that I felt in my bones. The village collapsed. Every building fell in on itself, folding like paper, settling into a low mound of rubble and dust. The well caved in. The tree fell. And then it was over. Kane was on his hands and knees coughing. I was on my back, staring at the sky, watching the last of the sunset bleed into the mountains. 7 minutes and 12 seconds, I said. You're late. He laughed. It turned into a cough, then a sob. I'm sorry. About your helicopter. About the pilot. About all of it. Save it. Delgado's voice came over the comms. Captain, we see the dust cloud. Status. Alive. Kane 2. Get the villagers to the extraction point. We'll meet you there. Copy. I sat up. The village was gone. The bunker was sealed. The thing inside, whatever it was buried under 100 feet of stone and twisted metal. Kane was looking at me. You didn't have to save me. I didn't save you. I just didn't have time to shoot you. He smiled again. The sad one. Echo Harvest isn't over, Captain. They have other sites. Other bunkers. And now that they know you stopped this one, they'll come for you. Let them. I stood up, dusted off my uniform, and started walking toward the ridge where my team was waiting. Kane followed. Behind us, the village smoldered in the twilight. The villagers were safe. My team was alive. We'd won. But as I walked, I couldn't stop thinking about the hum. That beautiful, terrible sound. And I couldn't stop wondering if closing that door had been the right thing to do. Because hope is hungry. And I had just started. Months later, I got a letter. No return address. Just a single line typed in the center of a blank page. The bunker wasn't a prison. It was a nursery. And you killed the only thing keeping the others asleep. I burned the letter. But I still hear the hum sometimes. Late at night. When I'm alone. When I'm tired enough to forget that some doors are better left closed. This is Captain Mira Voss, signing off. If you ever hear a child crying in an empty place, run the other way. It's already too late to help them. It was always too late. The only question is whether you'll be the one holding the door when it closes.